6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, my friends in Sasquatch land. Welcome to another Tuesday night on Discover Sasquatch. And do we have a show for you tonight? We have the Sisters of the Moon in the studio, and they're all three are here backstage right now, waiting to share all their evidence and stories with all you tonight. So welcome to all. We had a great turnout on Saturday night, and I wanted to say thank you to all the new friends that we have made since then. I just want to get one thing out of the way. The raffle for the Discover Sasquatch tumbler will be postponed, or not postponed, will be held on August 31st when the Godfather Alfred Santariga joins us for his encounter down in with the Florida skunk ape about 25 years ago. So we're going to auction that off then. So please leave your name, comment, like, do whatever you want, the hokey pokey, and we'll put your name in the hat, and my grandson will be down to draw the winner of the tumbler, and that's August 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I have three women that are waiting backstage to come into the house, so I decided to bring in a special co-host to help me with all our guests tonight. So you all know her as Boots on the Ground. She was my first interview. Please welcome Barb Glesner to the podcast.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Barb. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Ready for this show.
Yeah, I'm ready for the show too. I'm very excited. I've seen Carrie's special on Bigfoot Odyssey, and I'm very excited to be able to talk to these guys live, and I mean the ladies live, and I'm excited. So we'll get this show on the road, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bring out the Sisters of the Moon. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
There she is.
There she is.
There they are.
Okay. For everybody that doesn't know, Barbara is in Colorado camping, and she's having little technical difficulties with her internet, but she'll be here, but she might be in and out all night long. So just to let everybody know. So how y'all doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah.
Doing great.
Sandy and I look like we dressed a lot. Look at that.
Hey.
Yeah.
We didn't send you the text, Barbara.
You guys didn't send Barbara the memo? So you guys
I'm good.
It's just a coincidence. We're both in the black blouse with the sleeves out. Shoulders.
Great minds.
I guess
right.
we're sisters, so there you go.
All right. So welcome to the podcast. We got a lot of people in the chat already saying hello to everybody.
Hey, chat.
So who wants to start first? Everybody usually starts off, what was your first interaction? I'd like to start off with what was your favorite interaction out of all your times in the woods? And we'll
Oh.
start with Debbie. How's that?
Well, my favorite one is the 3 nights we were at the place we call Tribulation Bay and we recorded the gibberish.
Okay. How
That
about
was
you,
pretty
Sandy?
exciting.
Oh gosh, it's hard to pick because we've been to so many fantastic locations. Oh wow, probably Tribulation Bay too. Or
Right.
me and Debbie both watched one walk by the tent, and it started pulling on a tub all for hours. That's a busy place, but I do have a second place, and probably Helen, Georgia. A lot of good
Yeah.
stuff happened.
I think that's my second favorite too.
Yeah.
So you guys are all on the same page. I mean, you guys are basically sisters, right? There's no arguing, or you guys are just
No, me,
tight.
Barbara, Debbie, we really just click. We have no problems. We never have cross words. We think very much alike.
Okay.
We have no
Okay.
problem. We're a good group.
Can your sister hear us, or is she?
I think she's out of commission again.
Yep.
Bless her heart. I know that's
Oh.
aggravating. There she is.
There she is.
Hey,
Hey, y'all.
she's back.
I
Hey,
don't know
Barbara,
how I'm here.
Are
I'm
you
not
getting-
even on the internet.
are you getting good signal on your phone? Because if you get good signal
I
on your
was just
phone, you
trying-
might be able to use that instead.
Oh, wait. Well, let me try. It says I do, but good Lord, I don't know.
Chris,
It's
does she need to
working
leave
right
this?
right now.
She could go right to
Maybe
her
it'll
cell
stay
phone.
on.
Disconnect now, and then she go right to her cell phone, and then reconnect with the same password again off of that
Boy.
if you want.
Well, let's try it right here for a little while it's working, and if it stops, I'll go to my phone. Can you hear me
Good
okay?
idea.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you. Yep. So Barbara, the first question that was asked, everybody always asks, what was your first interaction? I asked, well, what was your most favorite interaction?
My favorite. Gosh, I've had so many. I guess it was scary at the time, but my favorite interaction was with Sandy and my niece when we were at the conference in Jefferson, Texas.
I forgot about
We
that.
had an exciting night there. Yeah, that's
Okay,
probably my favorite.
Okay, well, fill us in on what happened what happened out there.
Oh well, I don't. We were at the conference and we were camping out in the woods, and we got there before dark so we could set up our camp. And we got ready, went to conference, and came back, and we're sitting around the fire. And I asked my niece, "Hey, you want to hear some Bigfoot talk?" And she goes, "Yeah, I do." So we sat down in front of my tent, and I played the recording that Debbie had sent us of the gibberish from Oklahoma. And as soon as it stopped, I played it once more. I played it twice in a row. Well, just as soon as it stopped the second time, right behind us in the woods, we heard these loud boom, boom, boom. And then you could just feel energy coming up behind us in the woods. And it got up to the tent and went around each side of the tent and shook the trees. It had been raining a lot. The trees were full of water. And it shook the trees and just doused us with water and then took off into the woods. But why this is my favorite is because it ties in to me and Sandy and Debbie, I think, of why the gibberish was the first night it was recorded. We thought it was something coming into camp to fuss at youngsters to make them leave. And this night, it was like they were being told the same thing, like they understood this language. And they were being told to leave. And they left. They weren't real happy about it, but they did leave. And then we went for the rest of the night.
Nice. I'm gonna play the gibberish.
But that's my
for everybody.
favorite.
I'm going to play
But
the
like
gibberish for everybody that hasn't heard it yet. So obviously we'll get all your guys' opinion on the gibberish right off the bat. Can you all hear it?
I'm back.
Wow. Now, did you guys all hear that with your own ears, or was that a recording?
I didn't hear
I
it.
Debbie
heard
heard
it.
it.
Me and Carrie. It was just the two of us that first night. And then Barbara came the next day and we told her all about it. Of course, we didn't play the recording back or anything at that moment because it was about 12, 13, 14 hours worth of recording. And but then they heard it as soon as, we finally got it off of the recorder and onto a laptop. It took a long time to do that because I didn't have a laptop that worked at the time. And it was almost a year before we got it off the recorder.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty amazing recording there. Have you guys used it often out in the field? Have you guys played it often, tried to get responses?
That was really the only time I've ever played it.
Yeah.
And we got a
know-
reaction to it.
You know anybody
I
else
would-
have tried to use it before?
No, I was real hesitant to use it since we don't really know what it's saying.
Right.
Yeah.
we can only speculate. I mean, the night we heard it, everything. This was the first time we had ever camped at this location. We'd gone out before and looked around an area not far from there. Henry was with us. It was me and Henry at first, and we found a lot of tree structures and really cool things out there. And so she kept looking and found this area and then sent us all the pin to it. And we all went out there. First it was Carrie and I, and then Henry came later on that night. It was actually about a little before 4 a.m. when she showed up. And then Barbara came the next morning at 10 a.m. And we had never been out there before, only Henry. And so we had to follow the pin to get there. And as Carrie and I were setting up the tent, it was 7:30 at night on September 15th in southeast Oklahoma. So it was still daylight. And while we were setting up the tent is when we started hearing different animal sounds coming from the same location, just up a slight little incline going into the more of a wooded area where we were at. And they were all coming from the same area, but it would start out as one. First, it was, I think we were hearing a cow sound first. And then I think the second one was a sick chicken. And then we started hearing a whimpering dog. And then the last one was what sounded like a bear. And we knew that there wasn't any cows or dogs or chickens right there. But when it came to the bear, there are bear in southeast Oklahoma, black bear, but we've never seen one, but we knew they were there. And it was kind of weird, that we were a little freaked out. We weren't really scared. But when we heard the bear, we were like, well, we don't have bear spray. Carrie usually had the bear spray, but she didn't have any that night. And so we left and we drove 45 minutes to get into the nearest town and tried to get, find some bear spray just in case, even though the chicken didn't sound like it was really a chicken. It sounded like it was sick, and then the dog sounded more like a whimpering type dog. But we kind of thought it probably was Bigfoot. We didn't know. We had never heard anything like that before. But that's why we wanted to make sure we had something in case that was a real bear.
Right.
And so we were gone about 2 hours. And when we had first gotten to the camp, I hadn't set out, any audio or anything because we immediately were starting to set up the tent, trying to get it all done before it got dark, which that taught me a lesson, it's just set out recorders as soon as you get out there. But so I left a recorder running. I turned one on before we left to go into town. And like I said, that was about a 40-minute drive, I think, actually. left it running the whole time we were gone, and we were gone about a total of 2 hours and got back about 10:30. And once we ended up listening to all the audio for that whole 2 hours we were gone, there was nothing, no noises, anything. Now, I didn't listen to that for a long time either, you know, but as soon as we got back into camp and sat down and built a fire and everything, it all started up again. And we had all sorts of stuff all night long, just off and on. And then when we finally went into our tent is when it amped up even more. And they hit our tent twice with their hands. I happened to see one on the second hit, and I could actually see the hand come in, and it was about yay far in the front right corner from where my cot was. Something was along the back side of the roof of the tent, dragging either its fingers or branches or something. It hesitated around the potty area that we had, a little closet-like thing in the back. That's when I was looking over my shoulder up at the ceiling, watching it move through there, you know, dragging whatever and hesitating. We both were looking over my left shoulder at something messing back there. And it was then that something hit the front, you know, right corner of the tent. That's how we knew there were at least two of them there. And then anyway, that proceeded on, off and on all night long. And then, you know, we'd get up, get in the cot, and then go back to the middle of the cot, middle of the tent, sit there for however long, get back in the bed, go back to the middle. We went outside a couple of times because early on when it started, once we were inside the tent, I was messing with the cot and I heard what I thought was like a 2-syllable cough out front, and I thought it was Henry. And so I looked at Carrie and told her, you know, Henry's here. And so I unzipped the window that was right in front of me and I looked out, but there was no Henry. And so I zipped it back up and I said, well, that's weird. You know, Henry's not here. And then just a few minutes later, heard the same exact 2-syllable sounding, what I thought was a cough. I still, you know, it sounded so much like to me, you know, it's 2 syllables. This time though, it was more to the right. Whereas the first time where I heard it, it was straight in front of the tent. So I unzipped that window again and I shined a spotlight out there and hollered Henry. And I called her, you know, name again, and there was nothing. And so I zipped it back up and stepped back and I looked at Carrie and I said, that's not Henry. I don't know what that was, but it's not Henry. Then we heard it again, more to the definite right. And I stepped to the middle of the tent. She was still in her cot on the other side of the tent, and it proceeded around us. Every time it coughed, it had moved, and it had circled all the way around us. And so that's why I told Carrie, I said, it sounded human, sounded to me like it was human. And that's the only time I really got scared, is because I'm more worried about humans than I am Bigfoot, which may be crazy, but I am. That's why we carry guns. It's not because of Bigfoot. Our guns aren't going to hurt a Bigfoot.
Right.
But so I kept telling Carrie, I said, we're sitting in the middle of the tent now. And we still had our little night light on. You know, it could see us, whatever was out there could see us moving around inside. So we sat down in the middle of the tent. And I told Carrie, I said, I've got to know if it's humans. And so we're whispering, and I said, let's get our key fobs and stand at the door. Her tent door was one of those where you could Velcro it or you could zip it. And we only had it Velcroed. And I said, we can stand there. It had like a little piece of tubing that went down the side. And so it would swing open like a regular door. I really like that. And I said, let's wait until we hear something where we think it's out there and zap our key fobs where the lights will come on real fast. And maybe we'll catch something in the lights. We'll jump out as soon as we hear it and hit the key fob. And then we had our gun in one hand and the key fob in the other. And we're side by side standing in this doorway waiting to hear noises. And when we did, we went out there and we joke around and we say it was like Charlie's Angels, you know, had our guns and jumped out and had the headlights of the car, you know, flash on 2 or 3 times, didn't see anything at all. We walked around best we could and didn't see anything, hear anything. Then we ended up going back in the tent and A little while later, it started up again, and we decided to try it again. But this time, instead of just flashing the lights, we started the cars. Hers was a truck. We started the vehicles so the lights would stay on. And we did the same exact thing a little while later and still didn't see anything. And so I felt better because I don't think humans could have gotten out of there that fast because the things we were hearing sounded rather close. And once we went back in the tent that last time, that's when things amped up and they started, dragging something on the tent, hitting the sides of the tent like I was talking about earlier. And that proceeded off and on all night until, gosh, I ended up laying on the floor for the longest time. We were trying to text Barbara and Henry and telling them, which I didn't have any signal. Carrie had some. So, we were asking where Henry was, where you at? Y'all are missing it. And anyway, so she had gotten back up in her cot eventually. And then after it had quieted down, it was probably around 3 o'clock or so. And so I got back up in my cot, and about 3:20, I heard something. I keep my phone where I can look at the clock anytime we hear something. That way I can make either a screenshot or make a mental image, so I can try to remember what time on the recordings to listen to this stuff. And so it was a little before 4, I was laying there and I could start hearing movement again. And so I'm laying there wide awake. And then that's when I heard the gibberish. And I looked over at Carrie and she was rolled over on her left side facing the wall. And she was on the end that it sounded like all that was coming from. And so it sounded to me like two separate voices, you know how we all sound different?
Right.
To me, listening to it right then, it sounded like two separate creatures or whatever. And then the third one that came in sounded like it to me in my mental image, it was in between me and the other two. And it sounded like it was getting on to them. That was just how you make those visuals in your brain when you're experiencing things or hearing it. That's the feeling I got, is that it was getting on to them. And right after the gibberish stopped, I could hear the cracking of wood and then the splintering. And then I thought, holy crap, that's a tree breaking. And as it was starting to fall, I was jumping up. I remember probably 1 foot hit the ground and I'm hitting Carrie on her shoulder, trying to make sure she's awake and hearing this. And she, rolls over and looks at me and I point to my ear like, are you hearing this? And she nodded, yeah. And so sure enough, a tree had fallen. And I mean, it was, it was freaking amazing. I still get excited talking about it.
Right.
And, but after that, it was just dead silent. And then the next morning, about 6:30, I was, asleep. And I remember waking up because I was hearing something. And I thought in my head before I'd opened my eyes, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It started again. But when I opened my eyes, it was daylight. And so I'm still hearing it outside. So I look out and it's Henry. And I go running out the tent and I'm like, where have you been? You don't know what you've missed. And she's like, hold on, wait a minute. Before you start, telling me anything, let me tell you what I saw when I pulled in last night. And she had gotten there evidently around 4 or so. And she said when she pulled in, she had gone down past our camp a little bit and then circled back in. And I guess her headlights had come around and then hit our tent. And she said that she could see the bottom half of a leg, like a calf and everything, running off from the left side of the tent, which was my side where my cot was, and it was running down the ridge line, but that she could only see the calf. And then when I'm telling her what all had happened, and then I get to the part about the tree crashing, she said that she did hear the tree crash. And so evidently she had gotten there just a little before, all of that last part took place. And what we started speculating and wondering that maybe the two juvies, we're thinking it was probably juvies. I think they're more playful and interested and curious, like just like kids. So maybe the two juvies or whoever had come into camp had been messing with us all night. And then when Henry was coming down to camp, maybe this third one, maybe the big mama or big daddy saw the lights or heard her coming and had come over there and said, hey, y'all get your butts out of here, leave these women alone and get home. And so maybe, who knows? That's all speculation, but that's how I kind of visualize it happening.
Right. So you guys got the same response out of the vocal, like Barbara got that response. They shook the tree when they heard that vocal and they got mad and they left. You had the same thing happen at the tent there. So was it the same, the same response? So could you say that the language that was said, like you said, hey, it's time to go home, get out of here, let's go. And they're not happy about it as they left, obviously, because they wanted to stay around and play a little bit more, but makes sense. Makes sense for sure. Yeah, that's
it does.
Right. And you're the first one. Remember when I was asking if anybody ever heard the barnyard sounds before, and you were the first one I've ever heard that heard them before. And I heard that donkey noise and everything in Missouri in the middle of the Ozarks, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm hearing. And then you came and told me like, oh, I've heard them before. I'm like, I was like, and then I didn't feel so bad anymore.
And we were in the Ozarks, but we were in Northwest Arkansas.
Right, yeah, the Ozark Mountains. I'm telling you, they're loaded. I think. I really think they're.
We had a fleet of cows in the national forest moving at us.
Yeah, that's good.
And we heard the donkey sound twice.
Yeah. I heard the donkey sound, and then I heard the chicken, and then I heard like a duck quack thing, whatever it was. But yeah, there is no donkeys anywhere near where we were. So that was a very interesting story. That was pretty cool.
Us either.
Yeah, right, it's all fascinating to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your take on the vocals, Sandy?
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Barbara was at a picnic.
Yeah, we think so.
He was messing around at the table, and me and Debbie was sitting over there by each other.
And
it sounded like a cow moving, and we're like, "What? A cow? This is woods out here. What's a cow doing out here?" But then there were many cows, and they would get closer and closer to us. And then Debbie said, "Was that a donkey?" I said, "Sounded like one." But I had someone tell me that, which it was Mark on a show I did with them on the Beast, tell me that actual donkeys are used with cows, and I guess that you could tell it was mimicking.
Right.
And we knew good and well there were no cows out there with us. There was no farms anywhere around us. We're deep in a national forest, and we even went into the tent, and when we got into the tent and got quiet, it stopped. So we're like, well, let's make some noise. So once we started making noise again, the cows started mooing again. It was hilarious. That's the only time I've really ever heard them mimic anything except for truck sounding engines. Heard that up in Helen, Georgia, and I heard it at Tribulation Bay. It sounded just like a semi that was just not moving, but a semi shifting gears up and down. And knowing good and well there wasn't no semi back there. Our semi couldn't get back there. Those roads were way too narrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And that night I was talking about when we heard the gibberish and all the other animal sounds. Later that night, we also heard what she was talking about the first time, a truck motor sound, and it was coming from the same area that all these little animal sounds were. And then later on, we also heard a power saw sound. And it'd be, every now and then we'd hear it, and it'd be coming from the woods just right up there. And so it was cool. A year later, almost to the day, when Sandy finally got to come out there to Tribulation Bay, and that's when she heard the truck motor sound and some low moo sounds, which we're wondering if it's more of like a deep moan that they do. And that's what we heard up in Northwest Arkansas too, that she was just talking about those kind of moos and the donkeys and stuff.
There's just too much. There's just too much similarities all over the place for this not to be true. I mean, these guys got to be mimicking. You know, and why?
Yeah.
Why though? Why do you think they don't enter tents? You know, you always hear of the tents and slapping the tents with their hands, and like you got the shaking the water on the tent and pressing in on people's backs. Why do you think they don't go in? Well, you know, why wouldn't they?
I don't know, unless they're afraid maybe that we have weapons in there or something. I don't. That's the only thing I can speculate, because if they ever decide to come in, you're not going to stop them. But
Right.
I mean, they'll
And
go. I mean, right, yeah.
yeah, and I don't think they know, unless we've had, people that other than us maybe have had experiences. I don't know, but most of the time the windows are closed and stuff. During the day they're open, but at night we close them. We zip them up. Maybe they don't know what's in there. They might think it's a portal and we go in and we disappear and then we come out and there we are again. They might be thinking, where the heck are they going? Are they going to a different dimension? And, they might be kind of scared of what's inside the tent. Who knows?
Maybe there's just the little ones that come and check things out.
Yeah.
So, does someone got their volume up real loud on? Because I keep on hearing an echo.
I don't. My air conditioner kicked on.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's Barbara. There she is.
Hey,
All right, so
the storm. I think we're going to get a storm on, and we're going to blow away. Oh crap!
Hey, Barb, you got any questions for the ladies?
I was wondering if Sandy and Barbara would like to tell a little bit about something that what goes on at their house, any experiences that they've had.
Oh, now Barbara's the one with the cool house. Now, I did see a juvenile one time late at night in the yard, but she's the one that has all the wild stuff going on in her house. Yeah.
Well, you had your son heard like a scream in the backyard, right? And that's how
that's what piqued my interest. And that's exactly what happened. I was heading outside and he was trying to head inside because he heard that horrible scream. And he was like, Mom, what was that? I don't know, son. I really don't know. And it was loud, crazy loud. I remember getting on the internet at my home, and we're talking, this was years ago. He was listening to different sounds, and I play a sound for him. I go, son, was it this? I played cat sounds, screams, foxes, anything that would have been in the area, bears, anything I could find for him to listen to. No, Mom, no, Mom, no, Mom. It wasn't that. And then for kicks and giggles, I've seen Bigfoot house, and I clicked on that, a Bigfoot scream or whatever. And he said, that was it. That's what I heard. I said, oh, no, it was not. You're crazy. He said, wow, what is it? What is it? I said, it says it's a Bigfoot scream. He went, oh, my God. But that's really what sparked my interest, other than being a little girl watching the Legend of Boggy Creek movie, which scared me to death. And Barbara actually lived near me at that time when that happened. It sparked her interest too, and that's when we both started doing all the research we could on it. And then, lo and behold, a few years later, we're in a little group out there hunting the darn things, and pretty successful. We don't have to get out and walk around in the woods. I think it's because we're women; they don't look at us threatening at all, and they actually come up to us. We always try to make sure we're out there for at least 3 or 4 days, because we're very, very blessed, but usually at least one of those nights we have something happen. We're very blessed, and we know it. We know.
Well, I think they interact. I think people have a certain energy that they're attracted to, and they'll come and interact with them. I mean, they can tell what your intent is,
Yeah.
So how about Barbara? Let's hear about what goes on at your place. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk to her tonight.
I know it.
I'm sending her a message.
Okay.
I told her to use her phone.
Yeah. She's had the back leg ends of deer legs thrown on top of her
If
house.
my
She's had several.
phone is worse than my computer.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to be a pretty face mostly, y'all. I guess. Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
No.
sometimes.
You did? Y'all may just have to do this one without me, girls.
You might want to
Oh,
try just audio without the
I don't
camera.
think
It might
it looks
use
like a
less.
storm kind of blowing up out here, and the phone. I'll try to listen. Y'all know about my stick.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
tell your story.
Sorry.
Well, she has a back sunroom off the back of her house, and she's had the door completely pushed in before. Her son, when he was staying there with her, there was a window by his bed,
Go
and
ahead.
he had a couple of. I'm sorry. Can you want to
I'm
say it,
hearing
Barbara?
nothing.
Can you? Oh, okay. Um, there was a couple of TVs by this window, and one night she heard a lot of noise going on in her son's room, and she even yelled at him, stop messing around in there. It's late. Stop it. You're being too loud. Well, the next morning when he got up, he said, Mom, he said, that wasn't me. He said, something reached in the window and pushed my TVs off the TV stand, and they just hit the ground.
Both of them.
Yeah. She's had all kinds of crazy stuff happen there. She's heard owls and moans, and they gift her things. She'll tie a ribbon around a post for them, and they'll take the ribbon off and bring it back to her place and tie it on one of her posts. She has really heavy fences. Them kind that it takes a couple of grown men to lift up and move. They'll be shoved over. Good gracious! Look, yeah, there's some of her stuff.
Yeah,
She's
that's
found
her flowers there.
baby footprints in her barn. Her barn's got a soft dirt, and she's found baby footprints in there. I think she even took a picture of one. I don't know if it was sent to you or not, but
And then the next year there'll be another one. It'll be a little bit bigger.
bigger. Yeah. She has a lot of interaction. She'll go lay sticks out straight, and they'll go make all kinds of designs with the sticks. She has tons of activity out there.
Right. I think we got.
Yeah, there you go. That's how she'll do them. And then the next time you see them, they're like that, stuff like that. What does it mean? I don't know. Who knows? But we had stuff like that happen up in Helen, Georgia, too. It was really wild.
So she's
Yeah.
she's in Texas now, correct?
She's in Colorado. Her home's in Texas.
Her home's in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Sandy mentioned it earlier. She's at 3 separate times, she's had headless rabbits brought up to her door.
Yeah.
And I think we might have sent a picture of one of those too. We were actually all camping together up in Oklahoma, and her husband sent her a picture and said, well, they must like me too, because they're leaving me presents. And it was another headless rabbit.
Right.
And then she's had a deer leg thrown up on her roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know all about that stuff. I had a coyote leg a couple months left at my back door, ripped off a coyote. It was pretty nasty.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I said, the common, it happens everywhere. It's just too much coincidence to not be true. So let's hop down the line now. I know you guys probably been telling these stories for about 100 million times, right?
Yeah.
So,
Bus.
where do you guys want? You guys want to head to Arkansas next? Is that where you want to stop and do the OP after that, or where do you guys want to go?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so who wants to take the lead on the Arkansas?
Go ahead and
Well,
start.
like Sandy was mentioning, we had the first 2 nights we were there, it rained all night long. And so the third night, it had been pretty all day. We were excited because it was going to be a good night, and clear, and we weren't going to have to stay in the tent. Sandy had been sick off and on. She was coming down with some sort of, the flu or something. I don't know. Might have been COVID for all we knew, because it was COVID last year when this was taking place. The end of July and the 1st of August, we were up there. And so that third night, we had gone down to some other areas and did some calls. Decided that after, we didn't get a whole lot of activity or anything where we had driven off to. And so we decided we'd go up the side of our tent. There was an old logging road. And so we went way up there and we went in Barbara's car. And I mean, it was a long ways up there. We got up to the, midways, but there was where some equipment were. Nobody was using any of it. The whole time we were there, there weren't any, loggers, saw very few vehicles. There had been a sighting the day before we arrived by a hunter that was out kind of canvassing the area looking for a good place to hunt. He had a sighting. And so while we're up there at the top of this hill, we do some calls, just dead silent, didn't hear anything. And as we're coming back down, I was sticking my head out the window doing calls. And I thought maybe it'll sound like a Bigfoot running or something while we're moving, But anyway, we get back down to camp and we're sitting around the fire, and it was Sandy and I, and Barbara was over heating some stuff up on the little stovetop that we brought with us. And that's when we started hearing the deep moans or cow sounds, whatever you want to call it. And I remember we looked at each other, Sandy and I were sitting kind of at an angle across from each other, and we were like, did you just hear that? And we were like, what was that? Was that cow or what? And there ain't any cows out here. I mean, we had been all over the area. When it was raining during the day, we didn't have anything to do, so we'd go ride around. And we were pretty deep in the forest, and it was a long ways, many miles before we ever saw any cows. And so we were like, there's nothing around here that close. And we know sound carries, but I don't think it could carry that far.
No.
But then it started coming in closer and closer. And at one point, it sounded like it was just right here behind us. But then as soon as this one would get through, one over on the other side of the fire sounded like it had come up close. And then we heard one over here. And so we were like, yeah, don't think that's cows.
Right.
And, yeah, surrounded by cows.
Right. Was it a triangle pattern? Did they come in on a triangle on you? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
they did.
Yep.
And then Barbara, of course, she was hearing them. We were hearing a dog barking, it sounded like, further off. And then we heard the donkey sound further off over to the left. And the cow sounds just kept on, off and on for a good hour and a half at least. And I mean, it was sounded like they got really close. And finally, we decided we'd go in the tent. And we had twinkle lights up on each side of the tent. Usually we have them closer into the tent, but there wasn't really any way to hang them close enough. So these were a little further out, and we knew that they were probably going to go off pretty soon. So we thought, let's go on in before they do go off, because then we thought they'd really probably move in more once it got dark. And so while we were inside the tent and we were talking, we could still hear everything going on every now and then outside. But we noticed, like Sandy had mentioned earlier, that when we would get quiet, then they would get quiet. And you can even hear us on the recording talking and saying, have y'all noticed that they quiet down when we do? So let's start talking again. And we start laughing real loud and giggling and acting silly. And sure enough, it starts up again. And so that went on, off and on. One set of lights went out, and we thought, okay, they're going to move in, and they got closer, but it went on for probably 3.5 hours total. And then it just, I think we either gave out or they gave out. I don't know. We fell asleep. And the next night, we didn't have a whole lot more happen. I mean, we could hear some stuff off, but they weren't as close. But what was so interesting is 2 weeks after we left, I was online and I saw something from Fort Smith, Arkansas, one of their online newspaper type things. And there was an article about a couple and their dog that was camping up in the area we were in. And they had experienced what they think was basically monsters, is how they described it, because they were camping in a cemetery, close to a cemetery. And I thought, okay, there was a cemetery just maybe a quarter of a mile from us, because that's where Barbara initially had wanted to camp. And she said that when they first got there, because they got there before I did, that she went down in there because it looked like such a good area, but there was already a vehicle down there. So we didn't want to camp anywhere around people. So that's when she left and found the area that we ended up camping in. So we were a quarter of a mile from this particular cemetery. And so when I was reading that it was in a cemetery where they were camping, I thought, I wonder where they were at. So I kept reading the article, and they were hearing all of these strange sounds that they hadn't heard before. So they decided to go into the tent, and they said that they took their dogs in the tent with them. And it said that once they got inside the tent, everything picked up, stuff started being thrown at the tent. They got really, really scared. So they let their dogs out to try to run whatever it was off. And when the dogs went out there, they started yelping, and they could tell that the dogs were being hurt. And then the next thing they knew, heavy stuff was being thrown at their tent. And I don't remember if it said they went out and looked or what, but it turned out to be the dogs had been ripped apart, according to this article.
Wow.
And so at the bottom of the article, they had a map put up there, and they had the name of the cemetery and an X, and it was that cemetery that Barbara had wanted to camp out that night. That was a quarter of a mile from us.
Yeah.
Well, that article had happened 2 weeks after we had been there, and they had said that this had happened about 2 weeks ago, from when the article was. And so we're wondering if that particular night, when all of this happened at our camp and we could hear those dogs barking far off, which I have them on the recorder, I just wonder if that was those people.
Right.
And so that's a little creepy, but I don't know.
And why did they come and not us like that?
Yeah.
It is something to do with the way we give off something. I don't know.
Right. I was just going to ask you that. Why do you think they were different towards you than they were towards them? The dogs, maybe?
Maybe.
Well, we had a little dog with us. We had Barbara's dog with us, which she don't make a peep, but their dogs were barking. And there was a man. It was a husband and wife and their 2 dogs. So maybe they were showing more aggression towards the man. I don't know.
Do you guys think that being women makes a big difference when you're out? Do you give you an advantage over men?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime we go with men, nothing ever happens.
Oh, really?
Or it just seems to be that way.
Yeah.
But
Well, I've been out, with Larry and some of our friends that are men, and we have had stuff happen, but I got to say it's nowhere near the level of activity that we've gotten when it's just been us. I mean, nowhere near it. And so I do think,
you guys prefer to go out with your group than with anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, I don't blame you. If you're getting the interaction, then why change things,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why change it all up? That's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
How
Have
about
you ever been afraid during a investigation or an outing?
Have we done what? I'm sorry.
Afraid? Have you ever been nervous that it was
It's
bad?
like being nervous. Yeah.
I
That's-
think
they jumped out that tree and was aggressive towards me and Barbara and Stephanie, or I took it as kind of aggression. They like hit the tent or something and water went across, and the next thing you know, you're hearing these boom sounds. I think they must have been up in trees, and they jumped down out of the trees after she played that little recording that Debbie caught.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could see movement running on each side of the woods. They were running through the woods on each side of us, and I tell you what, me and Barbara looked at each other, and I I was thinking, are we going to die tonight? You know, that was pretty scary. Yeah, but they left us alone. They went away.
They had their niece, their 40-year-old niece with them. And that was the first time she had ever gone out Bigfooting. She was in the middle, and she's like 4.5 feet tall. And they said that after that happened, she went inside the tent and drank half a bottle of Fireball.
Oh my God, it was one of them big fifth bottles. It might have been bigger than a fifth. And me and Barbara kept going, Stephanie, you're drinking it. I mean, she drank that. She drank that darn liquor in like 10 minutes. And Barbara was like, we can't tote you out, girl. You got. She didn't listen. She polished off that whole darn bottle.
She's a hoot.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize it until they have that interaction. Like, okay, I'm going to go camping with you. There's going to be a Bigfoot there. Yeah. Okay. And then it happens. And then they're just like, oh my God, this is like real, 100% real.
Yeah.
But you know what? She toughened up, and she went with us when we went to North Georgia, and we had activity then. She was hilarious then too, but
we got a question for you right here. This is my friend. He's called BF Bud, and he's just starting doing this stuff, so he's got a question for you. Do you ladies recommend taking dogs or not?
If they're good,
I think
dog. If they act aggressive, I wouldn't take them. You know, if they're noisy and the barky type. But I don't see there's anything wrong with taking a dog with you as long as you know it's a gentle type of dog.
Like I said, Barbara has a little. She's like I don't think she's a Shih Tzu, but she's very similar to that. Is she a Shih Tzu? Okay, and she doesn't hardly ever make a peep. But now that night when we were up in Arkansas, she growled.
Yeah.
She did growl.
That was odd for her, and that's the night we heard the cow sounds.
Yeah.
She was sensing something.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't. I have still yet to wrap my head around most of the stuff that happens out there. It just
and
it's
Chris,
mind-boggling.
I think I told you the other night when we were talking that, I was listening to the audio from that night up in Arkansas recently. And, we describe it, Sandy and I and Barbara described it when we were hearing it as like possibly cow sounds, But then when you listen on the audio, it's a very deep, you can hear it coming up, basically, it sounds like from their chest. Yeah. And it sounds like, more like that on the audio.
Right.
And to me, that made me excited when I was listening to that, because that just kind of confirmed it even more so for me that these aren't cows that we were hearing, that they are mimicking. And to us, when we're hearing it from a distance, our brain goes to what logical animal it could be that we're hearing. And so we relate it to these cow sounds. But on the audio, it's clear as day. What it sounds like was, of course, much better than what I just made. But it was really interesting, and it was so cool to be able to hear it on the recording and on the computer the other night when I was, playing it and everything.
Right.
And so
I can't wait to hear it. I'm excited for it to come out. I really can't.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to get it all done. Like I've said, I've only messed with one other piece of audio before, and I was a nervous wreck, and that was the gibberish and all of that. And I ended up sending all of that to Mark Newble, And so the other night when I was listening to the audio, I had to download Audacity again because my other computer had messed up, and Mark got it fixed for me. And so it wiped out, Audacity and everything. And so I messaged Shelly Reed, and she's such a pro, and she knows her stuff, and she uses Audacity a lot, and they help so many people with audio that she had written up like a very step-by-step guideline on how to use Audacity and to cut things and snippets and all that stuff. And so she emailed that to me like 2 nights ago. And so I'm going to give it a go. So y'all pray
Nice.
that
Nice,
I don't
nice.
screw it up.
Well, once you get it all clipped up, we'll have you back on again, and
You'll do great.
I
You
hope so.
get everybody a good listen at it. I'm excited because I've heard it. I've heard the animal song, so I'm all about it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm looking for a question. I just seen one, but
Yeah, Pat had a
on.
question there about fragrances. Do you ladies wear any perfume or fragrances when you go out?
Yeah, we do whatever we want. We'll spray perfume in the air sometimes.
Yeah, we have spray perfume. I normally don't wear perfume except when I go to work. But
You guys,
But
you guys wear gunpowder, right? Gunpowder. Gunpowder's not.
a lot of sweat more than anything.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
Yeah.
After 5 days in the woods, I don't think anybody wants to come around anybody,
Oh,
anyways.
gosh, talk about smelling horrible. We do the best we can. Baby wipes are our best friend.
Oh yeah, yeah. The baby
Now
wipe shower.
we do like burn incense and stuff. We'll light some incense and stick it all around out in the woods, light it and go off and leave it, hoping that maybe, they'll catch a whiff of that and come to see what it is.
Huh.
We've done that before.
Mhm.
We hang glow necklaces up in the tree line, and we've had some really cool stuff happen with those glow necklaces.
Right. Well,
Yeah, you do the.
what's the most thing that you've gotten the best? I'm sorry, I probably interrupted you, but what's the thing that you've gotten the most interaction with putting out in the forest?
Golly.
I would say the glow necklaces for me. Do you know of anything else, Sandy, that you think?
Well, I know we hung all those Mardi Gras up in Washington State.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We went to go find them, and there was none to be found. And I probably hung 15 out. They took them all. And I had them up kind of high in trees. So they like them.
Something took them.
Yeah.
So you guys, everywhere you guys go, you get interaction.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, not everywhere.
No?
Not every day.
I wish.
Not every day, but we'll have something happen. We think we were bluff charged while we were up in Washington. So.
Right.
Now that kind of made me nervous. At first, I didn't know. I wasn't even thinking bluff charge. And at first, it sounded like the trees behind us were like shaking or whatever. And I thought, is it raining? Because it sounded like a downpour was coming. So I stood up. Now, we didn't have a fire or anything because this was late September. So they were having fires up there. So we couldn't have a campfire. We had a little bitty lantern that we were all hovered around, trying to get a little bit of light. But I heard what sounded like a downpour. I stood up and I walked to the other side of the little lantern where Barbara was sitting. And I was like, is that rain? But then you could hear it moving through the trees. And so I'm thinking, how your brain tries to justify stuff? And I was thinking, could it be an elk and its horns, or antlers or hitting the tree branches? Because you could hear it moving from our right going to the left. But what finally made me realize, oh, Lord, this ain't an elk, was it went straight down the tree line. And then it sounded like it went from right to left and came up to the other side and then ran back down towards our tent, towards us, and stopped right when it got to our tent. And that's when we were like, oh,
yeah,
okay, we're going to play tonight.
You guys like to use your twinkle lights too, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
We talked about that before, Debbie does.
Yeah, some people say that they hinder. I think they bring us luck. I mean, if you think about it, when you got twinkle lights back behind your tent, it lets off a little bit of light. And if something walks by, if it's pitch black, you're not going to see it. So it helps us to actually see things, movement coming around us. And it's worked. I know me and Debbie seen we think a juvenile. I'm pretty sure it was a juvenile walk by us in Tribulation Bay. We both seen that one. And then, where was that last place we went, Debbie? That I seen one squat down behind the tent.
Oh, that was in Kisatchie National
Yeah.
Forest in Louisiana.
Yeah.
That
I
was,
said Squatch.
yeah.
And it rained like crazy that night. I really didn't think that there was going to be any kind of evidence the next day to back up what I said I saw. But sure enough, there was 2 indentions in some ferns where it had squatted down, right exactly where I said it had squatted down. So that made me happy. I
Yeah.
was glad you found that.
Oh, that was really cool.
What is a
'Cause,
twinkle light for us men on this program?
Battery
Oh.
operated Christmas lights.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Christmas lights.
All right. I'm good with that. I don't know what a twinkle light was.
Well, there in Kisatchie, the twinkle lights were up closer to our tent than they normally are. They were up on the back end of one and then down the side of the tent. And I was sick. And so I was laying in the tent on the cot, and my head was, back towards the back. But Sandy and Barbara were sitting facing me. I could see them, but they were facing the back of the tent. And they were outside of the tent sitting under a mesh canopy. And it had started thundering and lightning. Yeah, there's the ferns that were pressed down. But it had started thundering and lightning, and it was coming a storm. It wasn't raining yet, though. And I'm looking at Sandy and Barbara, and Sandy's face just lights up, and she's like, oh my God. And I knew she was seeing something. I roll off the cot and I get in the middle of the floor because I'm so stinking close to where she's looking. And I get my recorder out from under my pillow. Now remember, I was sick as a dog, wasn't I, Sandy? But
Yes,
as soon as I knew she was seeing something, that adrenaline kicked in and I was good to go for a while.
well, Barbara she was listening, with her probiotic ears, and she heard it walking away. She actually heard it traveling, walking away, which was another confirmation that I thought I'd lost my mind for a minute, but yeah, it was fantastic.
Sandy saw a head and shoulders. She could see the shadow.
It was like it was, trying to look in or whatever, and then it just went down. It just went down. And I seen it when it was going down. I'm like, what in the name of God? I've never seen one do that, but I guess they do because I seen it.
Real slow too. It just didn't pop down. It just kind of went.
It went straight down. And that's the only way I know. It's like it just squatted straight down. And it was very fluid, just very smooth.
Yeah. So what happened after the bluff charge? Anything else happen, or it was a quiet night, or?
No, it wasn't that the night that the bales that Barbara had hung in the tree.
Yes, they were moved.
Yeah, there were 3 bales hanging on the side of the tree closest to our tent, and the bales were facing our tent, so to speak. But the next day, 2 of those 3 bales were completely gone, and the 3rd bale was on the other side of the tree.
And do you remember, Debbie, one of us, maybe it was me, thinking we heard bells being messed with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. I remember that. Because that might have been when they took them.
Yeah, could have been.
Because there was no wind.
So you can tell Barbara's the one that has them on their property because she comes up with all the little trinket ideas, the bells, and she knows how to. She knows how to play the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. She must having a gifting area and having them at your place. You can learn so much about these guys is just crazy.
Chris, Barbara's done something really interesting before that makes us think that they are very, very smart and they do understand stuff. She actually took a piece of paper and on one side she drew stick figures of herself with braids because she used to have longer hair and she wore braids a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she drew a little stick figure of her with braids and then a little dog next to her. And then on a stick figure of a dog. And then on the other side of the paper, she drew a stick figure, a great big stick figure of a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
and she took it out. Now, I may be a little wrong. I think she went out into the pasture. I'm not real sure. I think it was on the other side of her fence. And Sandy, if I'm wrong, if you remember, contradict me, but I think she went out into the pasture and she put it on her side of the paper where it was her and the dog. And she stuck it, into the ground with a stick, put a stick right through that paper. And I think she said, this is me and her dog
Right.
talking to whoever was in the woods. The next day, it had been moved and the paper was flipped over to the Bigfoot stick figure with the stick stuck down into it.
Right.
So
It had flipped the paper.
Yeah, they're intelligent. I after this last Florida trip, I'm telling you, they're smarter than we ever thought they were. I'll tell you that right now.
yeah, I
Just-
believe they are.
Yeah, way smarter. They know who you are. Like that recording with them saying your name. That's your name. I heard perfectly clear.
Yeah,
I mean, they know
that was
who you are.
creepy.
Yeah, they know who you are. It's just, it's creepy.
And I think, that night when we were at Tribulation Bay and we had, the gibberish and all that, we talked to each other. Carrie had said my name probably a million times. I say Sandy's, I call Sandy and Barbara, and they hear us interacting. And, Sandy reacts when I say, hey, Sandy, and she turns around and says, what? I think they understand. Okay, that's her. And so stands to reason, I'm sure they probably have names.
Right.
They are intelligent like we think they are.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% for sure. For sure. So,
But that gibberish, that was recorded the very next day after we had that all night event. And, when they were hitting our tent and all of that, not the gibberish, the hey Debbie, the gibberish had happened that night. And then the next day when Barbara was there and then Henry, of course, had arrived that morning, it was that next evening we were out hanging glow necklaces up in the trees. Barbara had been around and Henry had been hanging some, and I went out to put my recorders out, and I had hung one recorder back kind of behind the tent several yards away and had already went through, the day and the time and where we were at, and left that one going, and then walked over to where I was fixing to hang another one, and I was in the process of hanging that one up. And when I did that, I could hear from the direction that first recorder was, I just hung, what sounded again like that 2-syllable cough sound from the previous night.
mhm.
Well, Barbara had been coughing while she was hanging up glow necklaces. And so my first thing was, and I even said it, and you could hear it on both recorders. I said, there's Miss Barbara. And I look over there in that direction where I just heard that sound from, which was over in the area that first recorder was at, but there was no Miss Barbara over there. And so I holler, Barbara, and she doesn't answer. And so I look and I'm like, Barbara. And then I hear her call, say, what? From way back behind me. And I turn around and I look back towards camp, which was a good distance away. And I said, did you just cough? And she said, no. And I said, did anybody cough? And they said, no. And so I said, well, hold on a minute. And I start hightailing it back to camp. And I start telling them, I just heard that same sound from last night over here. And so when we listened to the audio, on the recorder, it sounded like what we heard the night before. It just sounded like, but when we finally got it onto, a computer and could hear it on the computer, that's when you hear it say, hey, Debbie. And I think that's the only time I've ever gotten creeped out and got goosebumps.
I'll play it for everybody to hear.
Okay.
Let's see.
That still gives me chills.
Yeah, that was I was like,
Yeah.
hold on a minute.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy.
That was crazy.
Yep. That's why it's the best. The why do you think the audio recorders are the best tool you can get at? Because obviously the cameras aren't. Why don't they bother with the audio? That's another question I got. Can't catch them on camera because they do something to the cameras. I firmly believe that. But what about the audio? Why don't they bother with that?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, because audio recorders have a little light on them. I cover mine up with duct tape, but not everybody does, I doubt, So
Right.
I really don't know. Unless they just don't put off a frequency or something that maybe the game cameras do.
Right. Maybe the
So,
laser or something. Laser has something to do with it or all that.
who
Okay,
knows?
so most of your guys interact, all your camping and everything's been like down in the south. What brought you up to the Pacific Northwest? Just because it's the
Always
Pacific
wanted to go.
Northwest.
We've all
Yeah.
always wanted to go.
All right. So did you guys plan the trip? Were you guys invited up there, or how did that all fall into place?
We planned it.
We planned it, but then with the fires and everything, we were initially going to go to Oregon, where I have family in Oregon, and I've camped with my family up close to Mount Hood, and we had some really cool stuff happen up there. And we did have my brother with us then. And I tell you, stuff in Oregon, the sounds that I heard, the hollers and screams and the calls were totally different than what I've heard here, down here. And and then two, in Oregon, that's the only place I've had two recorders, brand new batteries, on 2 nights. Both of them record for 5 minutes. One didn't. I turned it on, didn't record anything. Both nights, both recorders quit and the batteries were dead. Brand new batteries both nights.
Right.
That's the only place I've had that happen, was in Oregon. But we were going to camp up there, fires everywhere, and we thought of several different places, and everywhere we were looking there were fires. And so I got in touch with Shane Corson. He had just been on Mark and Larry's show, and I asked him, I said, can you recommend any places for us to come camp? You're up there, that area. I had never been to, the Olympic National Forest area. And I said, can you recommend some good places? We don't want to be in a campground. We don't want to be around people. We want to be out in the thick of it. And he said, let me get back to you. So later that evening, I guess he had talked, with Derek and the others. Maybe, I don't know. That's speculation. But when I talked to him that night, he said, why don't you come here? And I was like, really? And, he said, we've got several acres here, and this is y'all, he described the area, told me some stuff about it. He said, you could stay here, however long you want to, or you can camp up in the forest. And I talked to the girls, and they were like, man, that's so nice. That's so nice. I mean, we were flabbergasted and just felt blessed.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We flew into Oregon and then drove up. Barbara actually drove her car all the way out there and carried all of our equipment, and spent the night in her car, her and Ellie, the dog, on the way up there, carried all of our equipment. So we didn't have to worry about any of that on the plane and stuff. And Sandy and I both flew, and she picked us up in Oregon because we'd already bought our tickets to Oregon. And then we drove up there to the OP, and we stayed the first couple of nights there at the OP, at the Olympic Project headquarters. Yep. And then the next 3 or 4 nights, we stayed in the woods.
Yeah.
And so
Trying to find
it was awesome. It was beautiful place. We saw a naked hiker.
Oh, yeah. All he was wearing was boots and a fanny pack.
That's it. And he had a stick he was walking with. And it was so funny when we came around the corner, he's going across, in front of us. And when I looked up, he's in that patty stance, the same, the one that every picture's in. That's exactly. And I had my walking stick with a video camera on top of it, and I had just turned the video camera off. And I said, and that, my friend, is why we don't have pictures of Bigfoot, too. I can't even get a naked hiker.
Yeah, we all had a sighting.
I'm not going to go any farther than that one. I'm not going any farther. So what happened up there? What was, did they come in on you? Did you guys do your twinkle lights and bring them in and all that, or?
Well, that's where we got bluff charged.
That was the bluff charge area. Okay.
That was a bluff charge. That's where the bells and the Mardi Gras necklaces and all of that got taken. And we found a trackway that had 5 prints in it. And Sandy actually found that. And
we got some pictures of that in here somewhere. I can find them.
And 2 of our walking sticks were, just big sticks that were about 4 foot long. And so when we measured the what's it called? Step to step? My brain.
Stride?
The stride, there you go. We laid the walking stick down, and it was right at 4 feet between each print. And we took pictures of that with 2 of our walking sticks laid between the steps, and it was right off of a stream. And so it was kind of muddy, and
I think this is it. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the 2 walking sticks.
Yep.
But there were 5 prints total. Sandy did good.
Well, thanks, Debbie. I'm good for something every now and then.
So did they put you in a spot up there, or did they just tell you what area to go to?
No, Shane told me where he camped sometimes, and we went out there the first night, and then the next 2 or 3 nights we moved from there and went back up way back behind their area, and that's where all the activity happened.
Yeah, it's always nice for someone to invite you to their area, because that helps out the situation very much. So, it's already established. You just got to hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, we were just so overwhelmed, and we're still so grateful to them. I mean, for them to we'd never met before, and
Right.
for them to say, come up here, you can have run of the place. He stayed there, the first night with us, and then came back the second, day or whatever. He showed us some of the, not audio, but video that they had, which I tell you what, people say, why don't we have them on game cameras? Well, there are some really good videos on game cameras, and they've got some really good videos. And he told us of some really good videos that people just won't give up, won't put out there.
Right.
And so I can't say enough good things about the people in the Olympic Project.
Nice.
Fine.
Yeah, they seem pretty genuine guys when you see them on TV. I mean, they're down to earth, they're humble, and what more can you ask?
Yeah, they're awesome.
So what's the future hold for the sisters? What's up next?
Oh, we're waiting for fall to get here because we got to get together soon. We're all in withdrawals.
Right.
Yeah, and we camp a lot normally during the summer, but Sandy's, over there in Georgia, and now Barbara's up in Colorado, and I'm here in Texas, and it's hard for us to get together.
Right.
And so we just go out on the streets and find random people and say, hey, you want to go camp? No. I'm joking, but.
So no plans of yet, though. So you guys not gonna fill us in?
We were talking off and on every now and then, and just talking today and saying we've got to make some plans. We've talked about going back to Northwest Arkansas. We've talked about going back to Georgia because we had some really awesome stuff in Georgia, and that we hadn't even really talked about here. And it's just, no matter where we go, unless Barbara comes here back to Texas and Sandy flies in, the only way we can get together is to like meet in the middle somewhere.
Right.
And so we don't know. We hadn't decided where we're going to go.
Well, I can't wait to hear what happens. I can't wait. So let's talk about that footprint for a little bit before we take some questions, and I'll let you guys get on with your night tonight. Were you all at LBL when that print was found, or were you there just by yourself, Debbie?
No. Mark and Larry and the Beast,
Right,
group, we'd all put together a meet and greet last year.
Yep.
And a lot of the people in the Beast group on the Beast page website, they had been talking about wanting to get together. And so we decided we'd go ahead and do this. And so we planned it for late October. And I got up there Thursday morning, I think, or Thursday afternoon, I can't remember now, but Mark and Shelley had been there for 2 or 3 days and beforehand, and it had been raining for a week and a half, I think, and it had rained for the 2 or 3 days that they were there. And when Larry and I got there, Shelley was saying, "Hey, you want to go look at some prints I saw yesterday?" And we were on a cove, and I was like, "Sure." And so the day that we were there, it wasn't raining, but the lows, or the highs, I should say, were in the 40s at that time. And it had been like that. I checked the weather and everything. It had been like that for over 2 weeks in the 40s. And so we go over to this cove, and there's tons of little footprints, barefoot prints in the cove. And it was really muddy, and tide had gone out. And I'm like, "Well, Shelley, you need to cast these." And she's like, "I know," but she said, "I just, I don't know. It could be human. It could be little kids running around out here." And I said, "Yeah, but when I looked at the weather and saw that it had been, 40s, I'm like, that's a pretty sorry mama letting her kids run around barefoot out here in the water, because it had, there had been water there and it had washed out and gone back out." I said, "I just can't really see this being a kid, And I said, either way, we need to cast those prints. I heard somebody say at one time, I think it was Cliff Brackman, any good researcher is going to cast a print, And so I was like, we got to cast these prints. And so we waited. People started showing up, and we had lots of people show up, more than we had ever expected. And so that next morning, I think it was the next morning, Shelley and Patrick Noble, they go for a little hike, and they hiked around to the other side of the cove. And when they went to the other side of the cove, there were little prints all over, but then there were big prints too. And the big prints stayed up closer to the shoreline, I guess, whereas the little prints were just all over the place, going out into the big muddy area where the water had been. And they came back and they were like, "Y'all come look at this." Well, when we got out there, they were big prints. They were bigger than normal feet.
Right.
But at the same time, the big prints were like perfect prints. And I'm even like, you could tell they had been there a while, because there were leaves down in there, and you could tell, that they had been there a little bit. And I'm like, y'all, I don't know. These are so perfect. And you know how you get hesitant and all of that, but we was like, we got to cast them anyway. And so we called to see where the nearest hardware store or whatever, because, there's just little bitty towns around there. Well, the two closest towns were each a 40-minute drive, or 30 minutes, somewhere through there from where we were in either direction. So we called the hardware store in both of them to see if they had casting material, because unfortunately I had like this much casting material in my car and nobody else had hardly any. So Shelly and I drove to this one town and we bought all of that casting material they had, which it was just, I think it was plaster of Paris. And she bought some, the reinforced steel, you know, and she wanted to cut the snippets and lay it down in the casting to make them a little firmer.
Yep.
We come back, and so we started casting prints. And everybody that was there, they were so excited, you know, they were coming out there and watching, and Larry went live and did a video while we were casting them.
Yep.
And the whole time, you know, we didn't know, we still not 100% sure. We didn't see a Bigfoot make them, but you know, when you got to weigh the odds of what it is, but I was still thinking, dang, these big prints look perfect, you know? And so Bama Murdoch was there, and he's an ex-cop. I don't think he's on the force anymore. So Mark asked him to do basically the collection, you know, and cut the prints up out of the dirt, once they had been dried and everything. So we filmed that too, and we tried to make sure we were wearing gloves and all of that. I collected eDNA out of some of the smaller prints, and I've still got that. Trying to find some place that's not astronomical in price to send that off. So when Bama, after the prints had dried, well, let me go back. Before I poured the first cast, I was picking some of the leaves out. And when I started picking the leaves out, I could see that these weren't perfect prints like I thought. At least not in the aspect of these are too cookie cutter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I started pulling the leaves away, I could see, holy crap, it's got a mid-tarsal break. And so I got really excited then. I get excited pretty easy about stuff, if y'all can't tell. But so I'm like, y'all, come here and look. It's got a mid-tarsal break. And it was going up an incline when it had stepped down. And so the print was angled. You know, it was thicker on one edge, and then the left side was on that incline. And but it just wasn't as deep as I thought it should be. Those little juvenile prints, they were real deep. And you could see the toes just go down into the print, like when it sunk. Whereas the big prints, they weren't very deep. And so that was making me think, okay, something's just not right. Why did this, you know, huge one not sink down when that little juvie or whatever did? So when Bama, after it dried and Bama starts to cut it out, he went around the print, and there were several big prints. And so he's cutting each one out. But the first one he's cutting out was over there where I was casting the prints. And he was like, man, he's using his knife, and he's like, man, this is solid rock I'm going through. And then I'm like, holy crap. That's why it didn't sink down, because it was just pressed, thick, deep rocks all up under it. That's why it didn't sink. And so then I really got excited. And the prints turned out rather well, and it was a joint effort, and it's really impressive. And, you know, we don't know 100% that it was in fact a Bigfoot, but from the prints and the size of the prints and the shape of the prints and the mid-tarsal break that goes, you know, across it, it's exciting. And so I've got one here. Now this was, I don't know, you probably can't see the toes very well because the light's so bright, but right here, you can see it sticks out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a rock that was right there next to its pinky toe. And so when I casted the print, I took the rock out. And so where we're at. So that's where the rock is, or was. And then that's its pinky. And then you got two separate ones here, and then that one, and then the big toe.
Yep.
And then right here, I wish it wasn't so washed out.
No,
Let's
you can
see.
see it.
Can you see it?
Yeah, you can
That's
tell.
the mid-tarsal break
Yeah.
right through there. And but anyway, that's the print. And this is after we did the casting. You know, everybody there was so excited. They were a part of it. So I brought the original home, and Larry and I researched, and he found some stuff. We'd never made like a mold before. And so we did a lot of research, and he ended up buying some stuff, and I brought it home with me, and I brought the mold home and mixed it all up when he was here, and we put it over the original, made a mold of it, and then I casted, I think probably 16 or 18 replicas. And this is the first replica, and I kept it, and I gave the original one to Patrick Noble, who was one of the ones, you know, that was with Shelley. Him and Shelley are the ones that came up on those on that side of the coat. So he's got the original to this, and this is the first in the castings. And
Nice.
so, but anyway, it's pretty
That is-
cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely not a bear.
No, not a bear.
Definitely, yeah, definitely not a bear. Definitely not a bear. Well, that's
But anyway,
okay. You
they
got
call
any-
it, I was just going to say they're calling it the Reed Noble Trackway.
Right. Yeah, I remember when they found it. I was watching all. I mean, Mark and Larry are awesome guys. They actually did my third or fourth show. So I'm still learning. But
You're doing good.
yeah, I get nervous still. All right, so we're gonna open up to questions and then see if anybody's got some questions for y'all, and then I'll let you guys get on with your night.
Okay.
Okay, please, all questions all in capital letters, please, everyone. If you have any questions for the ladies.
There was
Well,
one-
Barbara's in chat.
There was one question, Chris. They were asking if the ladies believe that they're flesh and blood. That was Pat asked that.
Okay. Do you guys
Go
think
for it,
they're
Sandy.
Well, I think they believe. I do. But I do think they're flesh and blood. But at the same time, some things that happen, it makes me question what all they are capable of doing that maybe we can't. Maybe I don't know how to explain it. But the more I know about Bigfoot, the more questions I have, and the more I question my own beliefs. Sometimes I often think, you know, wow, I was so convinced that they were just flesh and blood, but now sometimes I don't know. I don't know if they can go into. I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's just things that crosses my mind sometimes now, and it's because of our experiences. And I sometimes wonder if they're capable of going into other dimensions or something. I really don't know, but yeah, I think they are flesh and blood, but I think they can do stuff we just can't do. And I don't really know how to explain that. I don't know if Debbie feels that same way, but I've been kind of leaning towards that here lately.
I do. I feel pretty much the same way. When I first got into all this, I was like, no, they're flesh and blood. They're flesh and blood. And I hadn't had the experiences at that time that we've had now, and so many things that we can't explain that we've witnessed, that now I don't have a clue what they are. I still believe that God made them. I don't believe they're aliens, really. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I believe that God made them. And I've talked to several people about stuff like this before. And, in the Bible, when we were created, we all had amazing abilities. Or, the first people, Adam and Eve, and then those that followed, they had all sorts of abilities. I mean, we had giants walk the earth back then. I think through the thousands of years that we've been here, and then the things that people have created, the things we ingest, the stuff that's in the air throughout the years, several people have lost a lot of these abilities, while some still have amazing abilities. I mean, we've got psychics. We've got, just like the little girl years ago had a dream, a vision of Jesus, had never painted before. She was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And after her dream, she gets up and she paints what she saw. And it's one of the most amazing pictures that for a kid that's never painted before, it's a masterpiece worth millions of dollars. And it's what she saw in her dream. You've got all of these people that have abilities that you can't understand. And so why couldn't God have created these creatures and they just never lost those abilities? They haven't been, in the cities and going through and eating all of the processed foods and putting chemicals in their bodies like, we do. So why can't they still have the abilities that God gave them?
Right.
I don't know. That's just one thought I have.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I used to be flesh and blood 100%, but after my last trip to Florida, I am not sure at all anymore. Not sure at all. I think they're flesh and blood, but they have special abilities, just like Sandy. Yeah, I think they got something extra. I don't know about the portals or any of that stuff, but they got something extra for sure. I mean, to stay hidden like they do, and they got something extra.
There's no doubt they've got abilities.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see what we got going on here. How about you, Barb? You got any more questions for the ladies tonight?
I was just wondering if there's an area that you wouldn't mind sharing with folks as to would be a good spot to go and possibly get interaction without you giving up any of, your spots.
Well, pretty much southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so wooded, heavily wooded in a huge majority of that area. I mean, Honobia, Honobi, as the locals call it. It's a very well-known area for Bigfoot. They have a Bigfoot conference there. Some of y'all out there in TV land may have heard of the Siege of Honobi. It's well documented. You can go up through Honobi and it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of acres of nothing but trees.
Yeah.
Of the NAWAC Area X, that's up close to that same area. So you could go to southeast Oklahoma and just get out in the woods. Get in the woods, like Chris says, anywhere up through there, and you're in a good area.
That was a great question. I've never even thought of that. That was a great question. Really good question. Yeah. Well, thank you for the advice.
You're very welcome.
We're going to take one more question here, guys. Next one comes up. We'll let them answer, and then we're going to call it a night. Your sister's in the chat, by the way, just to let you know.
Yeah, I seen her note. She says she's there for moral support.
Yep. Your sister says here she goes. Let's see. She wants to answer too. She leans towards flesh and blood with abilities also.
Well, great. That's why we all think alike. It'd be right.
We should have just kept her in. We should have just kept her in the chat, and I could have just been, taking her in and out all night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see Tim T would like to know if you guys are coming to Florida?
Hadn't thought about
Who
it.
knows?
We never know where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get down there with all those mosquitoes and the gators.
Ooh. I was just Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we've got Caddo Lake here in Texas, and they've got gators and mosquitoes, and they're nowhere near as bad as they are down there in Florida. And so I'll just stick to Caddo Lake.
And the spiders. They got those banana spiders are as big as your face. And their web, you got to peel it off. If you walk in your web, you got to peel it off your face like a sticker. That's how sticky it is. It's just
okay. No, I'm not going to Florida to Bigfoot.
I was sitting in the middle of a creek and I heard this little Ew, ew. It was a little baby alligator. I'm trying to find it with the camera. And meanwhile, Chris is going, well, you better watch out for mama because that's a baby gator right there. And you're standing in the middle of the creek right now. But I ended up catching it when I swung my camera around. It was pretty cool. All right. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to the ladies tonight. I feel bad that your sister couldn't stay with us. And, well, you guys,
me
a lot
too.
of,
Barb has some good stuff to tell. I hate
Right,
that
good.
she didn't have good signal.
well, once I get a little more underneath my belt, I'll have you guys back on, a little more weathered and seasoned. But I really appreciate you taking the time out of your night to spend with me and
Thank you
everybody else. It was awesome.
Thank you. We enjoyed it. Or I know I did.
All right.
I did too.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck in your future endeavors, and keep us updated and let us know when the recording comes out for sure. We all want to hear that.
All right.
We will.
If you got
We'll
any
let you
questions,
know.
if you got any questions about the Adobe, just ask me because it's very easy to clip on Adobe. I mean, two clips and then you're already done. And
Well, I like how that sounds already. Why don't you just make a little how-to video and send it to me?
All right, I will. I'll do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
It was
Well,
wonderful. I enjoyed it.
all right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
And
Bye,
we'll
guys.
Thank y'all.
I'll talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Bye, Barb.
Bye.
All right, Barb. What a good show, huh?
Very good show.
Yeah, very good show.
Those
It was good.
ladies
Yeah,
are
they're
always have
yeah,
good stuff.
very interesting. I was a little nervous. Most of the people that have been on here are my friends that I talk to all the time. You know, these are like the first. These are the first ladies that I haven't don't talk to, and I got a little nervous, but
Oh, they're good people.
so yep, very good people. So everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight, and don't forget to leave a comment and in the comment section and subscribe and all that stuff, and we'll get you to enter to win this little tumbler. And as Larry always says, well, you want to say it tonight, Barb?
Yeah. Get in the woods, people.
Yeah, you know it, Barb.